folks, how's it going? It's been a while since I've actually vlogged something, and I'm actually going to vlog something new today. It's basically a retro gaming handheld that I'm waiting actually from Amazon to bring to my place here. It's actually getting delivered today. Estimated detailed time is going to be sometime this afternoon, and it's actually made from a company called Waikasek, which is a company in China or in Japan, in that area, in that region, actually in China. And I actually bought this here off of Amazon themselves, and I actually bought it actually yesterday. It goes for about $70 Canadian. It's 69.99. As you can see from the intro that I have actually used the title screen. That is actually what it looks like, and it contains about 18,000 ROMs, which is basically the actual raw. Uh, think of it this way: I'm thinking as a firmware, as a ROM, as a cartridge itself that you used to play in the games like the Nintendo Switch, or I should say, the Nintendo DS, 3DS, so on and so forth. Those type of things, the cartridges themselves, and as well as with some of the other retro consoles that used to be out, like the Atari 7800, the Nintendo Switch, not the Nintendo Switch, Super DS, and a couple other ones. I don't have the exact details with me now because it's not with me here, but there is a wide selection of different consoles to play the games on. So 18,000 or more ROMs in it is quite good. And this is actually these retro gaming consoles. This one is like a little handheld, like the Game Boy Advance. It's similar like that, not as small, but they contain quite a bit of games in them. And I've always saw this as a good little product to have, especially for us older adults who remember playing Atari in television, the Nintendo, and some of the other older retro games, including the ColecoVision and all that. This one here doesn't have the Intellivision, which I used to have. I still have the actual hardware, but she's growing old in the age and doesn't work as good as she used to. And getting the proper connections, like for the RF modulator to hook it up to the TV, doesn't exist anymore. So it's going to be kind of harder to put it through the good old RCA jacks to connect it to get the sound and the video off of them. I thought of something like this, and then it brought me back to my youth. I used to do it on my Retro Pis that I have, or Raspberry Pis, I should say. I have a Raspberry Pi 3 and a Raspberry Pi 4, and one Raspberry Pi 5. Those are good as well, but it's dragging it out, connecting it to like a monitor that I have here that I'm doing recording with, or connecting it up to my TV, which has an HDMI output to it. Getting it all set up and then finally playing it, it's just taking a little longer than expected for me to actually have that. Once I get it inside, once it gets delivered here, I'm actually going to do a small little unboxing and let you guys actually see it at the same time as I have it in my hands. I won't do an actual physical playthrough, but what I am going to do is I'm actually going to show you what's on there, and I'm probably more likely going to have the volume set off on the console itself, just so I don't get any strikes against me because of the music being played on it. Uh, some of these ones I've heard were really good at one point, were good so far, not as good because technology wasn't there at the time. And the only other way of doing it would have been through like a Raspberry Pi uh, with whatever it has, with the dual core, quad core processor, 1 to 12 gigs of RAM, or 1 to 16 gigs of RAM on it, and finding the games on it. I'll say it is kind of hard in the initial times that I was looking through it, but I actually found a couple of good sites. But I'm not going to start suggesting going to these sites at all because it's considered piracy, and I'd rather stay clear of that for sure. So if you're looking for any extra ROMs to add into it, that you would have to go on your own discretion. But at least I'll be able to if you're looking to get one, I'll actually post a link to it on Amazon. Okay, but it'll be linked through Amazon.ca, which is the Canadian version of Amazon. But let me come back with the actual unit itself and actually do some type of unboxing with it, so at least you get an idea of what it looks like, and get it charged up at the same time, because usually these things come with about a half a charge. So let me come back with the actual unit. Okay. Hey, I'm back. This is actually Sunday after or Sunday morning still. Uh, in the previous one from yesterday, I was waiting to have my retro gaming console to actually come in, and it finally did. It's finally here. This is actually one from Case White Casac, or as I mentioned earlier in the intro. It actually just came in a plain vanilla white box. I had already opened it up, and it came with the console itself, manual, and a USB A to USB C charger. I got the one in black here, and it's really nice. It's using the operating system ArcOS, which is a Linux-based operating system, and it has game emulation on it. So it is really it runs nice and smooth because it has the processor in here is actually a dual core. It's a dual core processor with 8 gigs of RAM, and it has the games on the micro SD card, so it actually runs very well, especially with Linux, because Linux doesn't have that much overhead as compared to if you, let's say, you would have uh, as an example, like a gaming like a PC using Windows. Windows is a little bit bloated in comparison, but yes, you can trim down the bloatware from Windows. It's just a matter of knowing what to do in order to do that. But with this there, with links on it, it runs very nicely on it. I have no complaints. Let me just boot here. So here we go. Here we go. We got the boot coming up. Just so you can see, it's actually just booting. Da-da-da. Now, I had set the for the main screen itself as for a spinner. You have well over 18,000 games. I think there's a total of like 40,000 games in here, ranging from Capcom, MAME, which is the arcades. Basically, you have some from Atari 2600. Uh, Capcom itself, you have 28, 36, and 3. So I would say about 60 games from Capcom. MAME, you have 1,504 games available under that. Atari 2600, 31. 65 games under Wonder Swan Color. Okay, I've never heard that one before. 358 under PC Engine. Family Computer, which is actually from Europe. So I haven't heard of Famicom myself, but it's in Europe or at least in Japan. 1631. Super Famicom 7386. Nintendo, the original NES. That came into Canada and the U.S. Close to about 14,219 games available. 1332 for the Super NES, 142 games under the Nintendo 64, Game Boy 3D 675, Game Boy Color 2073, Game Boy Advance 1081, Nintendo DS 24, SG 1000 about 68, Mega Drive from Sega, which is 4622, Genesis 884, Sega 3221, Dreamcast they have about 6, Game Gear 262, Neo Geo 147, Neo Geo Pocket Edition 46 games, PlayStation 458, PSP 99, and that's basically about it. So you're looking at a total of 40,205 games available across these emulators. So you get quite a bit for about $60. It cost me $69.99, so let's say $70. And the graphics on it, even though it plays at 640 by 480 for these games, runs smoothly. Okay, it's kind of hard for me to show it here because it's in fear of, not because of me fearing not being played good enough to play it to show you it's really good, but it's something you have to see in person. You know, if there was one available at let's say at a local store, like a display model, you would be able to see it more clearly and be able to understand on how it looks. But overall, the animation and the game feel, even though it's on a smaller screen and you're using not the typical joysticks that you have or controllers that you would use on the actual game itself or in the arcades, but still it's somewhat familiar. I'm believe it or not, when I was growing up as a kid, or in the early '70s, the first gaming consoles were more or less just coming out, and they were Pong. In 1977, Atari made their 2600 in the very beginning in 1977. By '78, Mattel Electronics, just to give you as an example in comparison on my youth, the only two real competitors were Atari, and then you had Mattel Electronics, Mattel Electronics Intellivision, the Master Console. Those were the only two that were really around back in the day that were the top competitors. You had Bally Arcade as well, a small little mini version, but in comparison with the amount of games that they had to what Atari had and in the television, it's not the same. It's really, really different. Commodore 64 has been around, don't get me wrong. Commodore 64 and the VIC-20 are two popular gaming consoles and homebrew computers on their own right. Don't get me wrong on those, because I know those two like the back of my hand. I had friends who had Commodore 64 or a Commodore VIC-20 to play their games and to do their homework on. You know, like to have fun with it, you know. But those were the games of my youth, going back from the late 70s, early 80s. After that, when you had Nintendo, Super Nintendo, ColecoVision, stuff like that, where it became a really big console war of different generations. You know, I come from the first generation of the gaming consoles at the time in the late 70s and early 80s. And those were fun times. And this is just from me, uh, just something that I like to remember my youth. You know, these different games that I used to play. Even on the main section, there was one called uh, not Jungle Hunt. I think it was Jungle Jump or something, like similar to like Tarzan, where you had to jump vines in the very beginning, and then you had to go into alligator infested waters, and then after that you had to jump over boulders, and then at the end, in order to save to save a maiden at the end, you have to jump over these what they look like as because it's going to sound like I'm putting them down. I'm not. Where you have these zombie-like characters dancing around a fire, sinking her in, like preparing her for to be the meal, you know. So at the end, once you caught her, you saved her, and then it starts all over again, but a lot harder. So that's basically that. Uh, Overall, I like this unit very much. Just having it less than 48 hours. Uh, Battery time, I haven't drained it completely, but it should last at least 4 to 5 hours on a single charge. Me being paranoid that I am, I usually when I get something new like this, plug it in just to make sure that it's fully charged. But I'm going to try to uh, bring this down. I do have some other games for this, specifically what's available on here, and I might just add into it or mimic the raw the TFT card and just use a larger one and just clone everything there that I have of that, and then add the base to add some more ROMs to it to make it to grow the games in here, and then put it back so it gets reread into it. You know, that's what I'm going to do later. But for something like that, to get other games for this, I'm not going to start giving out links to the bottom of to down below for where to get these ROMs here for this. That there you have to do the search on your own. It's technically illegal to have them if you don't actually own the actual system itself and the cartridge. You know, so for at least for me, I have the Intellivision at home here. It's packed away. I can still legally play the Intellivision if I had it on this here too. So with that being said, I didn't choose like they have several different colors. This one here, I chose black because it's easy to keep clean. White. They have other ones that are very similar to like this with varying amounts. Some of them have good, nice transparent casings. I didn't choose to go that route. I chose to have something like this, just for the fact is, you know, I deal as a technician and as a technician in computer program. I see the internal circuits every day. So for me to see it like that, to have a clear coat one, eh, not so. I just didn't like it, you know. So that's my personal preference. Other ones like it because you get to see what the inside looks like, you know. Anyhow, uh, out of 5 stars, so far so good. Knock on wood. I love it. Never had a complaint so far when I played it out a few times. And I was just going through the listing myself just to see what it had in there. Brought back so many memories on some of the ones I recognized, you know. Just couldn't remember the name, but I remember the gameplay of it. It's just the name I couldn't remember. So if you're into old retro games, consoles, even arcade games from your youth, it's good to have something like this about. It brings back good memories. Anyhow, that's basically about it for this retro review. You take care, folks. Have a great day.